everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know who I am, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about the topic. We'll be talking about who told you to shrink. So you know I'm going to tell you to do. Go on. Get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea because we are about to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. Our topic today is who told you to shrink? Today, I want to start with a question that may feel simple on the surface, but it carries just a little weight. Who told you to shrink? Not just who said it out loud, but who implied it. Who told you to pick it up and make it yours? Who molded it? Who rewarded you for doing it? What in the world were they thinking? Because for many women, especially those called to leadership, to business, to ministry, shrinking didn't begin as insecurity. It began as instruction. Somewhere along the way, you learned that you could be a little more quiet. Somewhere along the way, you learned that you could be just a little softer. Somewhere along the way, you learned don't be too much. Don't take up too much space. Don't make others feel uncomfortable. And what makes that so subtle is that it often came wrapped in things that sounded very wise. Far too often, I can even recall overhearing a conversation between two women, and especially an elder woman and a younger woman, kind of a mentor-mentee type of relationship. There was no ill will intended, but yet the harm was being done. Words that said, be humble. Be patient, dear. Let others go first, darling. Don't draw attention to yourself, young lady. Now, while they all have a place and a purpose, far too often they are used to dim the light of a young person who is on a journey ordained by God. Far too often, when you are a young person doing something that someone feels that they must give you this instruction for, when you become an adult, they see exactly why your personality has never changed. Now, hear me clearly. Humility is biblical. Patience is wisdom. But shrinking is not the same thing as humility. Shrinking is when you begin to edit yourself to make other people more comfortable. And over time, that editing becomes automatic. That editing becomes an edited version of who you are actually supposed to be. You lose your authentic voice and you become your most edited self. You stop raising your head. You stop sharing your ideas. You stop fully showing up in rooms that you prayed to be in. And what's happening beneath the surface Oh, wow. That's something that neuroscience helps us understand. Your brain is wired for safety. When you experience moments like rejection, or maybe correction, or perhaps it's being overlooked or dismissed, your brain takes note. It says, that didn't feel safe. Let's avoid that next time. So instead of risk, you choose restraint. Instead of expression, you choose silence. Let me say that to you again. When you experience moments like rejection, like correction, not just okay, we want to do this instead of that. We're talking about that harsh correction, that overcorrection, that micromanaged correction. Or you have been overlooked, not just once, but consistently. You are dismissed, not just once, but consistently. Your brain starts taking notes of this behavior. So instead of risk, you choose restraint. You choose to step back. You choose to step away. You choose not to step up in the first place. Instead of expression, you choose silence. So, no, it's not because you lacked confidence in any way. Your self confidence was doing just fine. It's because your brain was trying to protect you. And here's the truth, what protected you then might be limiting you now. And the question becomes, are you still living by rules that were never meant to lead you? Let's bring this to the word. In Genesis, we see something powerful in the beginning of humanity. God did not create you small. God did not create you hidden. You were made in His image, with authority, with presence, and with voice. So if God never told you to shrink, then we have to ask, who did? When shrinking becomes your identity, let's go just a little deeper, shall we? Because shrinking doesn't just show up in behavior, it begins to shape your identity. And we must be very aware of this. You don't just say less, you start believing that you are less. You begin to question your qualifications. You second guess your voice. You hesitate before stepping into opportunities that were designed just for you. And what's interesting is that from the outside, it doesn't always look like shrinking. You can still be successful. You can still be visible. You can still be doing the work. But internally, you're holding back. You're editing your thoughts before you speak them. You're minimizing your impact on purpose. You're making sure that you don't outshine, that you don't outpace, or that you don't outgrow the room that you're in. Now, I know many of you have heard the advice that says that you should not be the smartest person in the room. And I must say, I agree. I know some awesome and amazing ladies, and we are all doing a great job at what we do. And depending on the conversation, we kind of go around the room and who is the most knowledgeable, who has the most wisdom on said topic. It's wonderful to be able to learn from your friend group and not feel as though you're the one always teaching. And I have to tell you, if you are the one who feels like you're always teaching, you have to make sure that one, you are not the smartest person in the room, or the flip side of the coin, that your ego is not getting in the way simply because you are a smart person. There is something to learn from everyone in the room. If you are doing any of these things, if you are trying to not outshine, outpace, or outgrow, it's starting to become dangerous for you. Because now it's no longer something that you do. It's something that you believe about yourself. I'm not really ready yet. I think I need more time. Maybe someone else should say it. Maybe someone else should do it. And here's what I want you to notice. Those thoughts feel like the truth, but what they actually are trained responses. From a neuroscience perspective, your brain has created patterns. Every time you choose to shrink and avoid discomfort, your brain reinforced that pathway. It said, "Good job, keep us safe." So now, stepping up feels risky. Speaking up feels uncomfortable. All of this is starting to take shape. So now it feels unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not have to mean wrong. Let me say that again. Unfamiliar does not have to mean wrong. It's just unfamiliar. Sometimes unfamiliar means you are finally stepping into who you are always meant to be. Let's connect this to scripture. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, we are reminded of this. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Fear tells you to shrink. Power calls you forward. Fear tells you to hold back. Love says, show up fully. And a sound mind reminds you that you are not imagining your calling. You are responding to it. So if you've been living in a pattern of shrinking, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been conditioned. And anything that has been conditioned can be renewed. Alrighty, everyone, it is time for us to take a very short break, but when we get back, we will continue this conversation. We'll be back right after this.
For many people, a breast cancer diagnosis can feel like a battle they're facing alone. But we are in this together because there are mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our friends. NBCF rallies and screening, supporting, and serving communities across the country. Because every woman matters. Every story is powerful. Every voice makes a difference.
Just beat breast cancer.
And every dollar helps. Together, we rise. Are you in?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today, I am asking you the question, who told you to shrink? I know, it's a really great question and one that I think that we need to talk about. So let's jump back into this conversation. Now, let's talk about what it looks like to come back into alignment. Because this is not about becoming louder for the sake of being seen. It's never about that. This is about becoming whole in how you show up. Reclaiming your space starts with awareness. You begin to notice where you pull back, where you hesitate, where you silence yourself. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Why did I just shrink in that moment? Was it fear? Was it fear of rejection? Was it fear of being misunderstood? Was it fear of being too much? And then you gently challenge it. Is that actually true? Now, if any of you are going through therapy, I know that your therapist has reminded you of the acronym STOP. That's what I'm talking about. Stop. Assess the situation and see, is it actually what's going on? Or is it something that you've picked up along the way, something you've learned, something you've trained yourself to do in order to survive? This is where both faith and neuroscience work together beautifully. The word tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Yes. Neuroscience tells us that your brain is capable of forming new pathways. So every time you choose to speak when you would have stayed silent, every time you choose to show up fully when you would have pulled back, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are teaching yourself a new way of being. Now, let's ground this spiritually. Think about Esther. She was positioned in a place of influence. But there came a moment where staying silent was no longer an option. And what was the instruction? If you remain silent at this time. In other words, your silence has consequences, not just for you, but for the people connected to your calling. There are rooms that need your voice. There are decisions that need your perspective. There are people who are waiting for you to show up fully. So reclaiming your space is not arrogance, it's obedience. And obedience does not always feel comfortable. Sometimes, just sometimes, it feels like stretching. It feels like vulnerability. Sometimes it feels like risk. But what it should feel is aligned. Showing up without apology. Let's bring this on home, shall we? Because the goal is not just to recognize shrinking. The goal is to release it. And one of the biggest shifts you have to make in this lifetime, perhaps, is you stop apologizing God has called you to be. Not in an aggressive way, not in a dismissive way, but in a very grounded, confident, peaceful way. You walk into rooms knowing, I belong here. My voice matters. My presence has purpose. And if it makes someone feel uncomfortable, that discomfort is not your assignment to fix. Let me say this gently. You are not responsible for managing other people's discomfort with your growth. Now, does that mean that you lose your compassion? Absolutely not. You still stay that empathetic person that you are. But many times, what irritates someone about you is the thing that they lack in themselves. The thing that irritates them about you is the thing that they wished they possessed. The thing that they dislike about you is that they did not have the confidence, the willpower, the gumption, the personality to step up and step out. They didn't trust God enough to be who they were called to be. So they wish to pull you back so that you can't be who you were called to be. But my dear listener, you've been called to lead. You've been called to lead with love. You have been called to lead with wisdom. You've been called to lead with wisdom and confidence. And still, you have been called to lead with discernment. You have been called to lead with knowing. But you no longer are supposed to walk in fear, because fear will always ask you to shrink. Fear will always ask you to be less than. And God will always call you to expand. God will always ask you to be the more that He created you to be. So let's anchor this one in a little bit more scripture. Matthew 5, verse 14 says, You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Not should not be hidden, but cannot be hidden. Which means hiding is actually working against your design. You were not created to dim your light. You were created to shine in a way that illuminates others. Now, I know someone is sitting there saying, you know what? That sounds awfully familiar. And it does. That is something that I have on my website. It is a reminder for all who visit. I say we shine our light when we are walking in purpose. If I shine my light and you shine yours, together we will illuminate the way for those who cannot see. So, my dear listener, it is time that you turn up your light. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop shrinking, you give others permission to do the same. Your presence becomes an invitation. Your voice becomes a catalyst. Your obedience becomes the doorway. So today, I want you to set with this. Where have you been shrinking? And what would it look like if you were to take up some space? Not forcefully, not performatively, but authentically, truly, fully, unapologetically, surely. Because no matter who told you to shrink, God is telling you to rise. So I invite you to take a moment today and notice yourself. Notice where you speak. Notice where you hold back. And in just one moment, choose differently. That's how it starts. Not all at once. Oh, heavens no, that would be too much. And it would probably overwhelm to the point that you wouldn't want to do it ever again. And that's not the point of today. But one decision at a time, one moment of courage at a time. And before you know it, you are no longer the person who shrinks. You are the one who stands. Thank you, everyone, for spending some time with me here today. I hope that I have once again enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.